could be God, right? I don't need something that's the same as myself. I need something higher than myself, something beyond what I can understand. And that's part of what makes God God. And so God really used this moment in my life, this tragedy for this family, and this act, this just terrible sadness. He used it as a faith strengthening tool for me, where I had to choose the fork in the road. Am I on this road where I don't trust you, God, or am I on this road where I trust you and I don't understand, but I accept your will and we go forward? And that was a big moment for me in deciding that, God, I don't understand, but I'm with you, and just part of the events that happened that led us to be here in Dallas now and being in seminary. So I think God does use these events in our lives, and sometimes it happens to other people, and yet we witness and we see what happens in other people's lives, and we're changed by it. Here's another thing we learn about God. God honors uncommon loyalty and sacrificial kindness shown to those in need. So when you consider Ruth and Naomi, how did God honor Ruth's loyalty and kindness to Naomi? How do we see that in the story of Ruth?
They found food at Boaz.
They did.
With David's line.
With David's line.
I mean, again, it was the loyalty, and then the kinsman redeemership of Boaz. And Naomi really pushed that. She got them together in a sense. Ruth wasn't looking for a husband. Naomi brought them together. So that loyalty was a true blessing because of David's line.
That's right.
But how many of us would have chosen Orpah's thing, got back to our comfort zone?
Right. I think 99% of us would have gone back to what we knew.
It's easy to be critical of Naomi and Orpah, how bitter they were, but that's more of a typical response even of believers.
It's a very human response, yeah, and we're gonna talk about that a little more later too, which I find that very interesting. Sacrificial kindness that Ruth showed to Naomi. When you say sacrificial, there are levels of sacrifice, right? I mean, there are things that we are willing to give up, and it's not too hard, right? Well, I mean, we're willing to give up maybe our cup of coffee in the morning to sponsor a child or something like that, and it's not going to kill us. We'll feel it a little bit, but it's not going to kill us. This kind of giving that Ruth did was truly sacrificial. I mean, she had never been to Israel. They worshiped different gods. They were different people, different customs, all those kinds of things. And Ruth knew nothing except Naomi, and she was willing to travel back there with Naomi to Bethlehem. So truly sacrificial giving. She gave her whole self. She gave her whole life to Naomi. So has there been a time in your life that you can think of where God rewarded that kind of sacrificial giving or loyalty to another person? Anybody have a personal story to tell? When we moved to Texas, we had to sell a house that had been in my wife's family for 100 years. And, we are from Rutherford, New Jersey, and that's all we've ever known, and that's all my wife's family has ever known. We're Rutherfordians. And so when that house went up on the market, that was a difficult time because we loved our house. We really did. And our family loves the house because that's all they had ever known. My wife's mother was raised in that house. My wife's grandmother was raised in that house. My wife's great-grandmother was raised in that house. And so Molly showed me sacrificial giving at that time. I told her I wanted to come to seminary, and she said, great, you can go to Rutgers, you can go to Princeton, whatever. And I said, no, I want to go to seminary. And when we worked through all that meant, selling the house and moving away from all that we knew. It was a difficult time. We did not have a lot of easy decisions. Our kids had to give up a lot. They had their friends. Rutherford was all they ever knew. Rutherford was all we ever knew. And Molly particularly, talking about the wife's influence on a husband from earlier, if she said no, that was it. That was the end of the story right there. We would have stayed in New Jersey and we would have lived in that house, and maybe I could have taken some classes online or something, but I would not be here going to seminary full time and teaching before you today. So it's just interesting when you talk about sacrificial giving. Molly gave sacrificially and gave up everything she knew and loved and was willing to come down here. And I hope that we have future blessings ahead of us because of that. And I know that we're blessed being a part of this church, being a part of this seminary, getting opportunities to teach like this. Just great stuff that we're being blessed by that never would have happened if not for some sacrificial giving from my own wife. So,
have the kids adjusted?
The kids are doing very well. Our daughter was 12 when she moved, and our son was 10, so 7th and 5th grade. Girls can be a little hard on each other at that age, and our daughter took a little bit of time to adjust. She didn't have it quite as easy as my son did. My son he walks into a room and he's the mayor immediately, but my daughter is not quite the same, and so it took her a little bit of time. But now, if you asked either one of them, they would both say, we're happy here, we wouldn't go back. And so it took us, a year to 18 months to get to that point. And I think they equate the freedom that they have here with Texas, and not the fact that they're getting older and able to have more responsibility and that kind of thing. So, we're cheating a little bit, but it's okay. What they don't know won't hurt them. So it's a good thing that we've gotten to this point. But the interesting thing about your question is that I'm going to finish school in another year. And now my daughter will be a sophomore in high school, my son will be in 8th grade, and what happens next? And so we're hoping that there won't be more sacrificial giving needed and that we have to pick up and move again. But that's what this story is about. This story is about God's providence. And if we have to pick up and move again, we know that God is going to use it for good. And if he takes us somewhere else, it's God taking us somewhere else, right? I mean, we're not going to decide we're lifting up and we're going here or we're going there and we're going to do it outside the will of God. We're going to pray and we're going to ask God to guide our decisions. And we've already been talking to the kids a little bit about the fact that we may not be here forever, and they don't want to move again, but in God's providence, they have been through it once now, and they don't want to do it again, but they know that they can do it. They can make friends because now they've done it once. So we'll see. We'll see where that leads. So here's something else we learn about God. God can handle our disappointments, even though things don't often go as planned. Naomi went back to Bethlehem and she was bitter and she was very disappointed. They were hungry in Bethlehem. They went to Moab expecting future blessings. They did get wives for their daughters, but then everybody passed away and now here she is a widow. So difficult time for her. So that's how things didn't go according to Naomi's plan in chapter 1, right? Naomi planned to go there and be fed and prosper in the land of Moab. That didn't happen for her, but yet she wasn't able to see the blessings that were ahead of her. So is there a time in your life when you were disappointed with God? And how did you handle your disappointment? And what was the result? God is able to handle our disappointment, and sometimes we cry out to God in our disappointment and our anger with him. And God is a big God, right? All throughout the Psalms, you hear David's laments and crying out to God and how long, O Lord, and things like this all throughout the Psalms and throughout the whole Bible, really, of just difficulty and disappointment with God. And God is big enough to handle that. So I want you to think back over your life and think about times where you were disappointed, when things didn't go according to your plan. And how did you handle that disappointment? And did God ultimately use it for good? Can you look back now, 18 months, 2 years, 10 years, whatever, and see how it was not fun at the time, but it turned out to be a blessing? If anybody has anything they'd like to say or a story to tell about that, I'm encouraged by stories like that. Yes?
I experienced a time of unemployment after college. My first job after college didn't work out, and I hated it, so I quit. Just moved in with my parents, which was bad. But for about 3 months, I didn't know what I was going to do. kept the faith. I never lost my faith. And then a door was open here in Dallas, so I was able to move up here and I'm here for a minute. So it worked out really well.
Where'd you come from?
East Texas.
Okay.
About 2 hours away.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Yes.
I sure didn't plan to be a single mom of a disabled kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely not in my little plans. So sometimes I'm still trying to, figure some of that out because he's 14 now, and it's a whole different life path in terms of college versus residential group home, with supervision and things like that. So but it's opened a lot of doors for us in terms of meeting new people and being able to, have different life experiences. And I thought it's made me a more patient person, I think, because sometimes he's very frustrating. But sometimes I'm still in the middle of it and I'm not over all the disappointment. But for the most part, I just really work hard at a positive attitude and finding the fun in it instead of the hard.
Yeah. We have a couple in our Sunday school group that has a special needs child, and they say, we would never have planned this and we would never have hoped for this, but it's just been an incredible blessing as we look back over it. It has not been easy, but it has been an incredible blessing, and it's just really fun to hear their story about how God has taken them to places that they never could have imagined as a result of this child. So again, God uses all kinds of things to shape us and grow us, and I think that's very encouraging. Anyone else?
When I was in Washington, D.C., God actually was like, you're going to Dallas. And I had never, I went to Dallas in high school. I mean, that's my only, I haven't been to Texas. I'm not going to Texas. But I was like, I didn't play, get me out of D.C., but don't send me to Texas. So, but he was like, you're going to Dallas. I'm like, okay. But he also said, but you're going to lose the relationship you're in. Mm-hmm. And so, but God was nice enough to get me to Dallas, and it's been a blessing ever since. But also to let me know the plan ahead of time so I can start preparing my heart for the disappointment. And so it was nice enough that he just went, bam, all happened the next day.
Yeah.
It was over time that the relationship ended, and I'm just totally blessed.
Yeah.
By not even being in that relationship anymore, but
that's great.
To be here in Dallas.
Yeah. When we agreed, or when Molly agreed to put the house on the market, we thought that was the fleece. When we put the fleece out, if there's a sign on the lawn, that house will sell the next day, and we'll be out of there. And we thought we were going to put the house on the market and be in Dallas in 60 days. Well, it took about 18 months to 20 months or something to sell the house. And so there was a ton of time questioning, God, are we in your will? We thought we heard that we were supposed to go to Dallas and go to seminary, and why isn't the house selling? What's going on here? And that was a difficult time because Molly said to me, are you sure you heard from God? Because, I'm quite happy to pull that sign off the lawn, and, we can just stay here and do it here. I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't know what's going on, but God used it, and I think the way He used it in our lives was it gave us time to adjust to the idea. It gave our kids time to adjust to the idea. Kids are very resilient, but it's hard to pluck them up in 60 days without a whole lot of time to really prepare. So they had a good year and a half to prepare, and I think that we didn't understand what we were going through at the time, but I do think that God used that to help us prepare. So, a couple things that we can learn. When we're disappointed with God, we must be careful not to overlook or minimize God's blessings. Naomi was having a pity party for herself, right? She was calling herself bitter. And the amazing thing was that she comes back into the land of Bethlehem, and she says, don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, because the Lord's hand has been against me, and I am bitter, so don't call me Naomi. And here's Ruth standing right next to her, who just gave up everything she had, everything she knew, to follow her into the land of Bethlehem. So how do you think that Ruth felt when she heard Naomi say, I was sent away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty? and call me bitter. My thought about that is that Ruth was probably thinking, hello, here I am. Am I chopped liver? I'm standing here and I gave up a lot to be here with you, and you say that the Lord brought you back empty. Naomi she wasn't able to see the blessing that was right next to her the whole time. She wasn't able to understand what was going to come to her through Ruth that was with her the entire time. Yes?
Well, I think what I see also is that Abimelech made a bad decision. Whether Naomi was with it or not, don't know. That resulted in a certain consequence, the death of the husband and the two sons. But yet God still brought blessing to Naomi. Even after that bad decision, God still blesses us. He still, if we're faithful to Him, He will bless us. Blessed her with a wonderful daughter-in-law, and to that daughter-in-law brought Naomi to a better place financially, and also having an offspring. That actually, when the lady says Naomi has a son, in a way that's true, because I believe Boaz had a son for Ruth's late husband. That was in his name, if I understand the law correctly. So God, there was a bad decision made. We make bad decisions. God can still turn around, even though there's consequences to those bad decisions. God can still bless us after it, even though in those bad decisions.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I think the key thing also, when you're a Ruth, though, you're in somebody's life, like Ruth was to Naomi. I think you have a sensitivity because you're sensitive that Naomi was bitter, but she's also grieving probably.
Right.
Yeah. We all, it's a process of grieving because it can take a long time. You're sidelined. You can't see, even if you're a Christian, see God's hand in things.
Right.
And I think part of helping people ministering is have that sensitivity.
Yeah.
You don't preach sermons at somebody or shake your finger at somebody.
Right.
You're there for them by their side.
Yeah.
And let them grieve.
Well, that's what empathy is, right? You want to put yourself in that person's shoes and try and. Sometimes it's better not to say anything. It's just better to be there, right?
I think Ruth had that wisdom.
Yeah, she probably did.
I want to say something about, God is, yes, there are things we can learn from her decision and things, but I think God was sovereign even in her decision. So it wasn't that God was a backseat driver and decided to turn that around to His glory, but he was working it for His glory from the beginning. So
Right.
even in her decision, God was sovereign in that too, and He worked it out. It was all. He didn't say, oh well, this happened, so now he's going to turn around to glorify Himself. But it was all, His ways were not our ways.
Right.